but I don't even want to focus on the Chiefs side of it. I don't think they're better than Philly. And I think that Philly, while they have a better path and the 1 seed is super valuable, if we do get Philly, Detroit in the NFC Championship game, even though it'll be in Detroit, I think Philly would win that. Wow. And if we show you their seasons next to each other, I think what you'll see is Philly has a very good but not great offense. They have a great offense. Philly, on the other hand, has a great defense, and Detroit doesn't have a very good defense. Detroit has a pretty bad defense. And so I would give Detroit's offense the slight nod and Philly's defense the massive nod, especially because Detroit's defensive numbers are actually, in my opinion, a little worse than what is represented there because they keep losing guys. Now, last night they were great, but they lost another key player, the rookie Terrion Arnold, who's been playing for him in the secondary. So, no, I don't think they're the best team in the NFC, and they're certainly not better than the Chiefs.
I definitely think they're the best team right now in the NFC. I think they should be favorites in the NFC. Again, coaching advantage to me over Philly and QB. I trust Goff more than Hurts. Now, Hurts has to run. If he runs, he's a different quarterback.
Don't
but
you
right
think
now, I think
he'll
Goff,
run?
But I think Goff is obviously played better this season.
No doubt.
And I think Philly's going to be trying to throw the football because A.J. Brown and all that.
Okay. Well, so let's talk about that because now he goes on to talk about the Detroit Lions and stuff like that. But I really wanted to isolate this clip more because of this was the pocket where they really talk about the Philadelphia Eagles and why Nick Wright believes that the Philadelphia Eagles are better than the Detroit Lions, but then obviously Brew disagrees with that. Now, these are seemingly the two best teams in the NFC, and clearly also a top team in just the NFL in general. But to just kind of keep it focused on the Lions and the Eagles and just kind of look at it more through this narrow lens, this is who it should come down to in the NFC Championship game. We know it doesn't always work that way. There could be so many different random turns and things that can happen, but these are clearly the two best teams from my viewpoint at this point. And so I don't get too lost in these numbers in terms of the points per game and the yards per game and the takeaways and this or that, because, it's just, it's nice to give it a baseline. It's nice to give you a frame of reference of how great or not great a team is. But when you're trying to compare two teams and you're trying to say which team is better, by just looking at this right here, it's just not how you get there. You can't say, well, this team has more points per game and this team has more yards per game, and it's just like, just doesn't work that way, honestly. It really doesn't. We know that. Because again, gambling then would be the easiest thing ever. And it would be so easy to predict that these companies would not make all the money that they make, and they would not be able to promote as much as they promote. And if anything, they'd be out of business. And Wall Street would be all over it. So we know it just doesn't come down to these numbers. We know that. Again, it's like not even up for debate. So what I find fascinating is that these are obviously two great teams, but both of these teams have shown that they can be beat, that they can be got, that they're not perfect, right? These teams are both kind of, supermen who can bleed. Like we've seen it. We've seen their kryptonite. The Eagles can be slightly inconsistent, and the Lions have dealt with legitimate just injury after injury after injury. We've seen that defense then get exposed. I know that defense has definitely held their own and has played pretty well, but when they face an offense that can really lay on the points, like the Rams or the Buffalo Bills, we saw what happens. And we know the Eagles, as evidence, clearly can do that as well. So it is such a fascinating matchup because you would technically say, if we were just looking at these numbers, that Philly is overall technically better. Their floor is not as low when you see the Lions defense 20th, 27th, etc. Whereas Philly does not have that. But Philly, but like the Lions offense hits the peaks, first points per game, second yards per game, third yards per play, whereas the defense is first opposing total yards per game, opposing yards per play. So it's like, it's a fascinating matchup. It's really a fascinating matchup, and I wonder if they play each other, would it come down to, can the Lions defense kind of hold their own against obviously a really good offense from the Eagles, and can the Eagles defense actually step up and still be a top defense and slow down the offense? Like, I mean, technically you can kind of make that statement about every single football game that has ever played, but it's obviously very relevant when you're looking first on first. Like, I always find that fascinating when like a top offense plays the top defense, and it's like, who will actually show that they can be the top in that moment, in that game? And then the other ones that are not average, but are not leading the team necessarily, which again, I wouldn't say that the Eagles aren't led by their offense either. It's just that their defense has just been really, really good. But it's like, can that offense really take advantage of the defense? Like, it's, we could slice it in so many different ways, which is what makes a matchup like this, honestly, from my viewpoint, again, really, really exciting. But I also look at it like this, though. I think the Philadelphia Eagles offense has some room to improve, and I would say the defense is pretty much as good as it can get. Now, same thing with the Lions. The Lions offense is pretty much as good as it's going to get. Like, where's the improvement there? And then the defense, it's like, can they hold this together? Can they hold it together? Can they continue to have this defense that's held together via duct tape? Can it withstand whatever the Eagles have in mind? And then that's when you're really going to get coordinator on coordinator, and it's going to be awesome. This is not, Nick Sirianni versus Ben Johnson. Nick Sirianni versus Dan Campbell. This is coordinator on coordinators. OC versus DC versus OC. What do we got here? Which quarterback blinks first? And it's a big part of me really hopes we do get this matchup. But with this game as well, I think it's so fascinating because I think the Lions know exactly who they are. I think they have their identity 1000% fleshed out. I think the Eagles are actually still slightly exploring. They know that they're run first. They know what makes them special, but they obviously can do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, as we saw, right? 1 minute, they're really letting Saquon Barkley run the show. The next minute, they're coming out, throwing out the gate, trying to get AJ and Devontae involved. And so that, to me, is actually kind of a good thing, because I think it'll be clear what the Lions want to do offensively. That gives Fangio a lot to work with. But at the same time, we know Ben Johnson has plenty up his sleeve. But you do know what the Lions ultimately will want to do offensively. With the Eagles, you don't really know. You think you know, but you don't really know. You don't know. And if you want to double down on the run game and say, we're going to take away Saquon, we're going to make, Jalen Hurts throw the ball and win and win with his arm. It's like, okay, well, you got AJ, you got Devontae, you got Dallas Goedert. I mean, like, you got those weapons. And if you say, no, we're going to just force Saquon to win it. He can't last the whole game. We're so physical, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to take away AJ and Devontae. Then we'll see what they do. And it's like, okay, Jalen Hurts can run all day. Saquon, Gainwell, that O-line, like, it's just there's so many different ways that the Eagles can actually beat you. So it's this matchup, man, has got some juice, no doubt about that. But I think they're just the top two teams. I personally don't feel the need to try to argue who's better than who. Who do I think has the edge? I get a lot of people like to hear that. They want to hear that. They want people to say the Buffalo Bills are going to win the Super Bowl. That's just not who I am, man. It's really, really not. And I think anyone who has confidence is like, again, it's just, it's based off of nothing. Brew's like, I think the Lions are better. And it's like, on what? They have the coaching advantage and the quarterback advantage. And it's like, okay, if you say so. And then you have Nick, who's like, nah, man, this defense for the Lions is actually worse than people realize, and the Eagles offense is better than people realize, and it's just like, you could genuinely make great 100% valid arguments on both sides. It is a toss-up. I've been saying this now for months, that this season will come down to some of these bizarre little things that no one sees coming. No one sees coming. Does Jalen Hurts get knocked out of the game in the third quarter? Does Saquon Barkley rush for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns? Does Jared Goff throw for 4 interceptions? Is there a muffed punt? Does someone on the Eagles, depending on who's their punt returner for the day, is it Cooper DeJean? Like, will he have this huge 60-yard punt return touchdown? Like, there's just so many of those things that when we look at games like this, that's how I think it's going to happen. And the Lions got a front row seat of that last year. Okay, they had a really bad fumble that was just like, oh my God, how could that happen? That just like came out of nowhere. They had that bizarre Brandon Ayuk catch that like bounced off his head. I forget exactly like who, whoever it bounced off of and how it came back, and Brandon Ayuk was able to catch it off the pass from Brock Purdy, which could have been intercepted or at the very least an incomplete. Like even Brandon Ayuk was like, a ladybug must have landed on my shoe or something. Like he knew it was lucky. Like just some bizarre stuff. Really bizarre stuff that almost always happens. So that's why I'm always uncomfortable trying to make predictions. And again, we don't even know if these two teams are going to face each other. If what Nick is saying, well, then the Lions should lose. I mean, seriously. If what Nick is saying is right about this defense, then whether they're facing Jaden Daniels and the Commanders or the Buccaneers, like the Lions should lose whether they're home or away. And then the Eagles won't have to face them. And again, if the Eagles are also as dominant and as great as I believe they should be, and as Nick clearly thinks as well, it's like, well, they should take care of the Packers pretty easily. And then they will have to face, again, it depends on 3, 4, 5, how that unfolds. But they should also seemingly be able to handle some of these other teams more easily. So, yeah, I don't know. If the Bucs beat the Commanders, and the Eagles obviously win, then it's an automatic guarantee that they face the Bucs, because that's the 2 seed will always face the 3 seed in those circumstances. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be interesting because these playoffs can kind of go in different directions, and I think the games are fundamentally different if the Vikings play the Eagles. If the Packers are playing the Eagles, but if I guess there's no chance. Right, there's no chance that the Commanders will face the Eagles unless they get to the NFC Championship game. But each game will be wildly different and will be attacked differently. And so we can try to predict exactly how will the Eagles go up against the Lions, but it's just like a lot can happen in these next few weeks. A lot can happen. So we will find out soon enough. A big part of me really does want to see the Eagles take on the Lions, just because I think it's just fire fighting fire. And these two teams have definitely been at the top of the ranks for pretty much the entire season. And it'll be fun to watch them kind of, meet in the middle of the ring. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Philadelphia Eagles being better than the Detroit Lions, according to Nick Wright? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.